In life, we often find ourselves grappling with uncertainty and questioning the timing of the events unfolding before us. We wonder why certain things aren't happening the way we planned, or why doors that seem promising suddenly close. In these moments, it's easy to become frustrated or disheartened, but it is in these very moments that we must remind ourselves of a powerful truth. God knows what we need, and His timing and plan are perfect. Trusting God's timing can be difficult, especially in a world that constantly pushes us to achieve, to move faster, and to control every aspect of our lives. We live in an age of instant gratification where we expect things to happen quickly and on our terms. We set goals, work hard, and when we don't see immediate results, we feel as though we've failed. But God's timing operates on a different plane than ours. He sees the bigger picture, one that we cannot see in our limited understanding. He knows exactly when and how to bring about the right opportunities, the right relationships, and the right growth in our lives. When we experience delays or setbacks, it's natural to feel as though we are missing out or falling behind. We start to compare our journey with others, wondering why they seem to be moving ahead while we are still waiting. But comparison only leads to frustration because everyone's journey is unique. What we must realize is that delays are not denials. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. God's delays are often a way of preparing us for what's ahead. He may be shaping our character, building our faith, or protecting us from something we aren't aware of. Imagine for a moment that you are traveling on a road trip to a beautiful destination. Along the way, you encounter roadblocks, detours, and unexpected stops. At first, these delays seem like obstacles preventing you from reaching your goal. But what if those detours were actually guiding you away from danger or leading you to a better route? What if the delays allowed you to see something beautiful that you would have otherwise missed? This is how God's timing works. He sees the dangers ahead that we cannot see. He knows the right moment to take us down a new path, and He ensures that when we arrive at our destination, we are ready to embrace it fully. One of the hardest parts of trusting God's timing is letting go of control. As humans, we want to plan every detail of our lives. We want to know what's coming next, how long it will take, and what the outcome will be. But faith requires surrender. It requires us to relinquish our need for control and trust that God is guiding us in the right direction, even when we can't see the entire road ahead. Faith is believing that God is working even when it seems like nothing is happening. It's trusting that every closed door, every delay, and every setback is part of His divine plan to bring us closer to our purpose. There are countless stories in the Bible that demonstrate the power of God's timing. Take, for example, the story of Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused and imprisoned for years. It would have been easy for Joseph to give up hope and believe that God had abandoned him. But Joseph never wavered in his faith. He trusted that God had a plan, even when everything seemed to be going wrong. In the end, Joseph rose to power in Egypt and saved an entire nation from famine. Looking back, we can see how every step of Joseph's journey, no matter how painful or confusing, was part of God's greater plan to prepare him for a position of leadership and influence. In our own lives, we may not always understand why things are happening the way they are. We may not see the purpose behind the pain, the waiting, or the disappointments, but just like Joseph, we must hold on to the belief that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for our good. Romans 8:28 tells us that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. This doesn't mean that life will always be easy or that we won't face challenges. It means that even in the midst of difficulties, God is using every experience to shape us, refine us, and bring us closer to the destiny He has prepared for us. Sometimes we need to be pruned and refined before we can fully step into the blessings God has for us. Just like a gardener knows when to prune a plant to encourage new growth, God knows when to remove certain things from our lives to make room for something better. It may be uncomfortable, and we may not understand it at the time, but God's pruning is always done with love and purpose. He removes what is hindering our growth so that we can flourish in ways we never thought possible. When we trust God's timing, we also learn to trust His wisdom. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Isaiah 55, 8 and 9. He knows what we need better than we do. What we think is best for us may not align with what God knows is truly best. There are times when we pray for something specific, believing that it is exactly what we need, only to find that God has something entirely different and far better in store. It is in these moments that we are reminded that God's wisdom far surpasses our limited understanding. In closing, trusting God's timing is not about passively waiting for things to happen. It's about actively seeking His guidance, staying faithful in the process, and believing that He is working all things for our good. It's about letting go of our need for control and allowing God to lead us, knowing that His plan is greater than anything we could ever imagine. When we trust in His timing, we can rest in the assurance that we are exactly where we are meant to be, and that the new path He is leading us on will bring us closer to the abundant life He has promised. Stepping out in faith is often one of the most challenging yet transformative decisions we can make in life. It requires us to venture beyond the comfort zones we've carefully built, leaving behind the familiar in exchange for the unknown. When God presents us with a new path, it's an invitation to grow, evolve, and experience something greater than we can currently imagine. That path, though it may feel uncertain and daunting, is filled with incredible opportunity. It's not just a change in direction, it's a chance to deepen our faith, build resilience, and step into a life that aligns more closely with God's plan for us. Faith at its core is about trusting in what we cannot see. It's believing in the promises of God even when the evidence before us suggests otherwise. This requires us to shift our perspective. Instead of focusing on the fear of what might go wrong, we need to focus on the possibilities. In fact, more often than not, God's new path will test us in ways we've never been tested before. But these tests are not meant to break us. They are designed to strengthen us, to build our character, and to deepen our dependence on God. Many of us resist new paths because we want certainty. We want to know exactly where we're going and how long it will take to get there. But faith doesn't work that way. When we walk by faith, we may not see the entire path ahead of us, but we can trust that God is guiding our steps. He sees the end from the beginning and knows exactly where we need to be. Hebrews 11:01 tells us, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This means that faith is not just wishful thinking, it's a confident belief that God's plan is unfolding even when we can't see it with our physical eyes. The new path that God leads us to is often filled with opportunities we would never encounter if we stayed where we are. It's on this new path that we meet new people, gain new experiences, and learn new lessons. It's where we begin to see the full extent of our potential. We may discover talents we didn't know we had or passions that have been dormant for years. This new path is not just about reaching a destination. It's about the transformation that happens along the way. Think about some of the greatest stories of faith in the Bible. Abraham was called by God to leave his home and go to a land he didn't know. He didn't have a roadmap or a timeline, but he stepped out in faith, trusting that God would lead him to the promise. Moses was asked to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, even though he felt inadequate and unqualified for the task. Yet he stepped out in faith, and God used him to accomplish one of the most significant events in history. These individuals didn't have all the answers, but they were willing to trust God and take the first step. When we take that first step in faith, God meets us there. He doesn't expect us to have everything figured out. He simply asks that we trust Him enough to move forward. As we do, He provides the strength, the resources, and the wisdom we need for the journey. Isaiah 41:10. Reassures us, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. This promise reminds us that we are never alone when we step out on the path God has set before us. His presence goes with us, guiding us every step of the way. Stepping out in faith also means we have to let go of the past. Sometimes we hold on too tightly to what is familiar, even when it no longer serves us. We cling to old relationships, jobs, or habits because they provide a sense of security. But God cannot bring new blessings into our lives if we are unwilling to release what is holding us back. Letting go is a necessary part of the faith journey. It creates space for the new opportunities that God has in store. Ultimately, stepping out in faith is not just about taking risks or making bold moves. It's about obedience to God's call. When we feel that nudge to move in a new direction, it's because God has something greater waiting for us. It may not be easy, and the road may have its challenges, but the reward is always worth it. The new path is an opportunity to grow closer to God, to experience His faithfulness in new ways, and to step into the abundant life He has promised.